So, I was a scarecrow for Halloween, but the makeups weren't off, so it's starting to look more like Frankenstein. I figured this was appropriate. This is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Is it an Oscar player, one of the better films of the year, or a gigantic misfire? We just reviewed Begonia on this channel. Loved that movie, but again, where do I fall here?
I had determined that the memory of my evils should die with me.
So, you know the plot of Frankenstein. A brilliant but egotistical scientist brings a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creator and his tragic creation. Jacob Elordi plays Frankenstein's monster, not Frankenstein. That's a distinction I have to make. Oscar Isaac is Frankenstein. You have Christoph Waltz in this film, Mia Goth, and of course Del Toro adapting Mary Shelley's classic tale once again, and we've seen countless interpretations of this on screen. Robert De Niro, and we had, what was the I, Frankenstein? Remember that movie?
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
And this is a story that is a tale as old as time, but can span through the ages with different incarnations and interpretations. And who better to get to bring this gothic story, this gothic tale to life than the guy who just completely nails that type of film. And a guy who's done this before with a character like Pinocchio, and that animated movie on Netflix was one of my favorites of that year. I believe this version of Frankenstein is the most visually appealing and aesthetically pleasing and just overall gorgeous version of the character brought to the big screen that I have ever seen. And part of that could have been my experience. I watched this in a little place called the Kentucky Theater, which is this very artistic vibe that's so unique. It's not the biggest screen and the best sound, but it's the entire experience that encapsulates that. And seeing all of these frames, I mean, every single scene, there's one frame where I sit back and go, that could be a painting, because it's so beautifully conveyed. And my God, man, he does this all throughout the film. The way that he utilizes the color grading, which is so vibrant at times, but that it has that gothic touch, that gothic flair to it that so many fans of the character, they're going to love. But the characters themselves, Oscar Isaac embodying this man who is a brilliant man, an egocentric man, a man who wants to be the furthest thing from his father, but ultimately ends up carving a very similar path for himself. And a guy who is so hell-bent on bringing this concept to life. Literally.
Boo! You stink!
And he's actually telling the story to someone else in this film. That's the technique that they use, the storytelling technique that we've seen countless times before. And honestly, it's very close to the original Mary Shelley version in that way. Although we'll get into what happens a little later on that does stray away from that path. But that was my biggest question in the beginning, the technique in which they go about telling this story. And I'm thinking it's a little awkward because we keep kind of flashing back to his life and then flashing forward to what's going on in the present. And eventually those stories meet up. But where this movie took a turn for the better as opposed to the worse is when we started to get that other distinct viewpoint, aka the viewpoint of the monster himself, played by Jacob Elordi. And once we begin to see the story through that perspective, it adds a little bit of that dynamic flavor that I was looking for, that made this script pop a little bit more than even I anticipated in the beginning. But you get a really unique series of events that we see Frankenstein's humanity come to life. And obviously, this is a man-made creation. This is a monster. We've seen so many versions of Frankenstein, and visually, very distinct, right? This isn't the green with the two things coming out of his... It's not that, okay? He looks a little with puzzle pieces. He's so good. He's unbelievably good. I had heard, Jacob Elordi for an Oscar conversation for Frankenstein, and I'm like, what are we doing here? People said that about Nosferatu last year, and then I watched that movie, and I'm like, okay, no, he is really, really good, and this is a very similar vibe, and I was even thinking maybe Frankenstein could go down that path of like 4 or 5 Oscar nominations, some technicals, cinematography, bada bing, bada boom, but it's going to miss out on picture, and it's not going to get any above the lines, but As I was watching this movie and I'm seeing Jacob Elordi's performance and how much he is committing to the body movements, the unique way that he interacts with the things and people around him, Mia Goth's character specifically, but even Victor, the way that he says his name, but is a very strange bond that these two had in the beginning, kind of, Oscar Isaac putting his ear up to Frankenstein's chest and just kind of feeling that heartbeat, and I can't believe this is my creation. This is something that I've worked my entire life for, but all this creature says is the same thing over and over, and there's no learning, and this is a failure. This is an epic failure across the board. And clearly that's where it's going to go because that's the story of Frankenstein. But it's when it actually starts to show humanity more so, and we get some moments with he and something that goes on and happens in a village, and I'm saying all of this, and you're probably thinking, Austin, this feels like a waste of time, because we know that's coming. We know we're supposed to emotionally connect, but will we be able to? Is Elordi good enough? Is Elordi good? Come on, man.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah. He's more than good enough. I felt so much heart in this monstrous performance, but you also understand that this story between this being and his maker, and then, a little bit of that obviousness of, oh, we know who the real monster is, and I'm just thinking, and they even say it at one point in the film, and I'm like, you didn't have to say that. Like, we understand what this script is going for here. It's very obvious, and they kept trying to make it more obvious as it went, and so that was a little something that bugged me. There's about a 5 to 10 minute span of me thinking, maybe the pacing is going to suffer because of this, but it never truly did, because every time I started to feel that way, it picked back up. Then Christoph Waltz character comes in and says, you can have all the money to make this project work. And I thought that was really cool. And then once the monster comes to life, it was so beautiful. I was just as satisfied with the story and screenplay itself readapting this character as I was with the obvious highlights here, which are the visuals. Outstanding. I said it, the cinematography, the shot selection, just the crispness and the vibrant colors, and then when it goes dark and grim and you're in this castle and the grays, just everything, even when it doesn't need to pop, it still pops. For those that are afraid they're going to be bored, you get some crazy action sequences with Frankenstein. In the beginning, he's just tossing people like they're nothing. In the end, he's fighting some things, and maybe the CGI in that scene wasn't the best, but overall, it's really awesome. And then when we get down to this final Furiosa-esque sequence, that's all I'm going to say with these two characters, man. It is so freaking intense. And there's a shot, and I'm sure you've seen this shot in numerous trailers, that you see it on the big screen, it stuck with me, man. And this is one of those movies, and I go, I'm inspired. I'm so inspired by this vision. I have heard some people that hold the original story so close to them are bugged with the way that this eventually plays out and kind of strays away from the original story. I, for one, I'm a fan of the character of Frankenstein, obviously, but I am completely cool and okay with that. I don't hold that lore close to my chest. If you want to reinvent it, fine. We've seen awful examples trying to reinvent Frankenstein, and then we've seen Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is just different enough to piss some people off, but I absolutely love the choices. They worked for this film, and without some of those choices, I don't think this movie would have worked at all. He's like Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty. He just wants to die!
I just want to die! We all want to die!
If this doesn't get cinematography, production design, if it doesn't get all of those, I'm going to be pissed. It's not a lock for Best Picture, but after seeing it and what Del Toro was able to do, if it doesn't get Best Picture, I will be upset, and I'm predicting it right now. I believe Elordi gets in for supporting actor. You don't even have to wait for my Oscar video. Here and now, dressed like a clown, scarecrow, what am I? I don't know. So I need your thoughts down below. Did you enjoy this version of Frankenstein? What's your favorite Del Toro movie? If you'd like to see a slight ranking of mine, let me know in the comments down below. And what is the best version of Frankenstein you've ever seen? Drop a like on this vid, share it with your friends, all those things if you want to support this channel and support my dumb face. Frankenstein is one of Guillermo del Toro's finest achievements. Not only does the film hit unexpected themes with elegance, but the style and overall visuals are even more impactful than anticipated. Tackling this journey of pain, love, loss, and forgiveness takes nuance, and there's so much consistency with how it presents these characters. Isaac and Goth are excellent, but Elordi is the showstopper, and an Oscar nomination could be in the cards. The storytelling method occasionally meanders and could cause pacing problems for some, but the emotional impact is perfectly executed. Frankenstein is the real deal. If you can get past the way that this story is told, which was admittedly a little awkward at first, and then you just get hooked on the emotion of this story, from then on, I was in, and even some of the awkward moments, I didn't care, and by the end of the film, I can't wait for you guys to see this on Netflix. Try to see it on the big screen, though. That makes a big difference. It really does, and this one is absolutely worth it. All right, I'll see you soon.